Hello guys, hope you are really well. It is Tuesday, the 27th of June, and here we are talking Arsenal again, talking transfers. Before we do that, I just want to say thank you so much. I put in a bit of a shout out at the start of yesterday's video about how transfers actually happen, and thanks for all the lovely feedback about that, by the way. I'm glad you found it interesting, and if you have ideas for similar videos, do let me know in the comments below and I'll try and get round to them. But I said I was hoping to reach 50,000 subs before the end of June. We are so close to that. I think it's 49,000 and counting at the present time. I think there's every chance we might tick over it today. That is brilliant. Thank you so much for subscribing, and if you regularly watch these videos and haven't yet, please do. It does actually really help. Today, well, there's only one place to start, only one thing to talk about, and it's Declan Rice. Last night, the bid came in from Manchester City, £90 million, albeit with some up front, some in instalments. We knew it was coming. All the best reporting, the likes of David Ornstein, told us City were seriously interested, that they would bid. Nevertheless, and I absolutely knew it was coming. When I saw the information that it had been lodged, my heart did skip a little beat. And it's funny, you know, even after so long covering Arsenal and being close to the club, these moments, they do still have an effect on you. That bid has been rejected this morning, somewhat unsurprisingly. You know, I think for West Ham, that £100 million figure carries a certain weight, even though we are starting to hear even higher amounts now, 120 or 100 guaranteed. You know, it'll be music to West Ham's ears that City are getting into a bidding war with Arsenal, because they'll be able to push that price higher and higher. The question you're all going to have, and it's a question I've got as well, is what happens next? So that's what we're going to talk about today. What happens next? Now, Arsenal obviously need to make their third bid, and it needs to be a big bid. It needs to be a bid that I think obviously surpasses what City have done. Have Arsenal delayed this bid so they could see where City would come in and then jump above it? I don't know. It would be a possible explanation for the gap between the second and third bid. But it's a bid that needs to impress West Ham, because it needs to give West Ham confidence that Arsenal have the capacity to do this deal. But it's also a bid that needs to impress Declan Rice, because if you're Declan Rice, you made the decision long ago that you were going to leave West Ham this summer. And he's not going back on that. He wants out this summer, and he wants to be playing Champions League football next season. At the present moment in time, you know, Arsenal has been his preference. Whether or not it still is, I suppose we might be about to find out. But Arsenal has been his preference. But after two rejected bids, could he be starting to waver? Could he be starting to think, have Arsenal actually got the minerals? Have they got the money? Have they got the will to do what it takes to get this deal done? And I think this bid from Arsenal, even if it's not ultimately accepted, has to demonstrate that they are prepared to go the extra mile. Because otherwise, the longer this drags out, the more he's going to think, well, I know City have got the means to get this done. So I think Arsenal have got to come in, and they've got to come in very strong. Obviously, as I just alluded to then, I think Declan Rice is going to be talking to both sides at this point in time. Why would he rule out Manchester City as an option? I think there are arguments for Arsenal, but he would be crazy to dismiss Manchester City. He's going to keep that option on the table. What does that Arsenal offer have to look like then to make Declan Rice sit up and pay attention, and to make West Ham seriously consider accepting it? I think it's got to be at a minimum a value of 100 million, probably something like 90 million of that up front, or guaranteed, should we say, rather than up front, and then 10, 15 in potential add-ons, achievable add-ons that don't probably involve Arsenal winning the Champions League, for example, a competition they've only just re-entered. That's the thing. If Man City say to you, well, we'll give you £2 million if we win the Premier League every time we win it in the next 5 years, West Ham are going to look at that and think, well, that could be £10 million the way it's going. Arsenal need to think about, can they do this around Declan's personal milestones? When he plays 200 games for the club, that's £2 million to West Ham. Things like that are going to appeal more to the seller. And then also the payment schedule is going to be hugely important. Can Arsenal get to 80 or 90 million paid within 3 years rather than 5? West Ham are putting it out there they'd like it over 2. Well, yeah, I'm sure they would. I don't see Arsenal having the capacity to do that. I think it is going to have to be a longer schedule of payments, but can they get closer to what West Ham want? Now, here's a question. That's a huge offer. We're already in club record territory here, and we are going beyond that. Is he worth it? Is Declan Rice worth £100 million or more? To be honest, I'm not sure any footballer really is, and I'm very wary of deals done at that level. It's quite hard to demonstrate value. It's quite hard to be a success with that sort of price tag, almost like a millstone around your neck. Is he worth it? Is it too much money? In player recruitment, you have to try and be cold and calculated. You have to try and look at it objectively. And I think if you are evaluating this player purely on ability, and I'm a big fan of Declan Rice, it may be too much, but there are other things to consider here. One is the market. The market is a bit distorted at the moment. I think for the holding midfield position, it's known that there are a couple of really top candidates out there. Declan Rice, Moises Caicedo. Beyond that, and after that, I think there's a bit of a drop-off. And that explains why I think their clubs, Brighton and West Ham, feel so confident they can demand these extortionate fees. Second of all, I think Declan Rice is so important to Mikel Arteta, to his project, to his vision of how he sees the team playing, that he almost does become worth it. I think missing out on him would be so costly, especially to a rival like Manchester City. So I think in this situation, Arsenal have to push. I think having lost the title to Man City, to lose this player to them too, while we all might shrug our shoulders at it and say, well, what can you do? It would still feel like a hammer blow. Because how do you catch the club who beat you last season and just signed the player you were hoping might help you close that gap? I think it's taken on a symbolic value. And as I say, his importance to the plans. Kai Havertz is practically a done deal. Was that deal done impartially, with the idea in mind that we might have Declan Rice, a really solid defensive midfielder to supplement, to support, to provide a platform for Havertz? I think so. And so consequently, I think securing Rice becomes all the more important. I also think there's a sense that Caicedo is getting closer and closer to Chelsea. And once Arsenal give them a few tens of millions for Kai Havertz, I think Chelsea will be even closer to being able to finalise an agreement with Brighton. I also think Arsenal have basically stepped off Caicedo to pursue Rice, and they're playing catch-up now. For them to, let's say Rice chooses Man City, or Man City do the deal with West Ham, for Arsenal to pivot to Caicedo at this point in time, I think it would require them to be super aggressive, super financially aggressive with Brighton and with the player. And I just don't see that as being Arsenal's style particularly. So I think that ship may have sailed. So again, you've kind of got to go all in on Rice. So Arsenal have to go big, and they have to go big very soon. And I expect that to happen. I think within 24 hours, Arsenal will lodge a really substantial club record, probably the biggest bid we've ever offered for any player. I'm trying to think if there was a sort of comparable situation. I can only think of when we were sort of in for Mbappe, but I don't think that even got to this stage of making an offer to Monaco, because he made it very clear what his preference was. So what happens then? Well, a lot depends on Man City. City tend to be quite disciplined in their bidding. They don't like being held to ransom. They will walk away from a deal. They don't need Declan Rice as much as Arsenal do. I think that's very apparent if you look at their squad. They do have the joker in the pack, which is Calvin Phillips, who West Ham are supposedly interested in. Could he be used as a make-weight in a deal that would save Man City some cash? Maybe. But if the bidding gets to like 110, 120, it wouldn't surprise me if City draw a line there and think, well, we like the player, but we don't like him that much. But they may not. And the reason that they may continue to pursue it is because it's Arsenal. And much as we're looking at it thinking, well, to lose this player would mean him joining a rival, City will be thinking precisely the same thing. Arsenal was City's closest threat last season. What better way than to keep them at arm's length than by signing the player at the very heart of their plans for the forthcoming campaign? So how hard will City push for Rice? That is the next question. You know, they've got Guardiola as well. I hope that's the right pronunciation. £100 million centre-back they're looking at. Is there a price point at which they go, we're going to step away? Maybe that's wishful thinking from me. I think they will stay in ultimately because of, you know, the fact that it is Arsenal. So I think it goes like this. I think this is what we're looking at. Arsenal go big for Rice in the next day or two. City, I think, match it. I think they will match it. They may improve upon it, but they'll at least match it. I think where they can improve is in terms of how speedily the payments reach West Ham, and that's going to be a problem. But even so, let's say the bids are equivalent value, pushing over that £100 million mark, which West Ham, I think, would consider an achievement, given that the player was talked about as having kind of 70, 80 million value back in January when Arsenal started pursuing this in a very serious way. Arsenal come in big, City match it, and then I think it's with the player. And then I think it's with the player. I think it will be his decision. And who knows what Declan Rice is thinking. And even if you're a journalist like me, or someone who's got a contact or a source, you might know what Declan Rice was thinking a week ago. You might know what Declan Rice was thinking 2 weeks ago. But none of us know what Declan Rice is thinking right now. None of us know the conversations he's had with the respective managers, with players at each club, with the money men. None of us are privy to that in real time. And where his head is will ultimately define this. I've done a video speaking about the reasons for him to join Arsenal. The reasons to join Man City also completely speak for themselves. It's going to be Dec's decision. And I think we're all going to be waiting on it. The good news is we might at least have some closure on this quickly. I think City being in, the threat of that will make Arsenal act a bit quicker. Hopefully they can get approval on these bids and get them into West Ham. Hopefully they can blow West Ham away and take City out of the competition. Something tells me it won't be that straightforward. I think it's important we get clarity on this soon. West Ham will want clarity because they need to know what they can spend in the summer market. I think we need clarity so we can make decisions about alternatives if we lose Rice, about Thomas Partey and his future. I think the Granit Xhaka one, maybe it's too late for us to kind of renege on that agreement. But we'll see. We'll see. Mikel Arteta is very wedded to Declan Rice. He'll be very disappointed if he doesn't get him, and it will cause a big rethink at Arsenal. Might be a question of back to the drawing board, especially if Caicedo ends up at Chelsea. So these are huge moments in Arsenal's pre-season and in their plans for next season. Speak to you all soon. Thanks so much.